We've all done and said things that we've later regretted when we realized the truth. Hopefully it made you stop and ask yourself why you believed it was true, or even question yourself as to why you made the decision in the first place. With the advent of the internet and the instant communication that gives us, we are bombarded with so much new information that at first glance we don't even know what to do with, or even who to trust and believe. Generally speaking, we tend to stick to a few individuals online that we hope are telling us the truth. We trust these people, that they have done their research and found the God-honest truth. And we, the viewer, in turn believe what they have been told or read themselves, and so the cycle continues and we tell others what we have heard from them, and so on and so forth. It's almost like a big old game of Chinese whispers. A lot of times when something happens online, we see something very interesting occur. We see the two sides play out, the news and drama channels cover it, then the articles in the Facebook and the Instagram posts. Now, the part of this I want to shine a light on is what happens when the entire truth isn't brought to the forefront, and as a result people are pushing a narrative without realizing. When the truth is brought up by individuals, it is shut down and ostracized by those pushing the narrative as it conflicts with their own ideas. Now you may be thinking, Simon, you're thinking way too far into this for some stupid YouTube drama shite, but that's not the point here, so bear with me. Those same kind of responses and ways of acting towards others has been seen in so many different scenarios, from auditorily boring things like YouTube drama to the multitude of wars, conflicts, and genocides throughout time. I know I went from one side of the spectrum to the complete opposite in a very short amount of time, but it shall make sense, young grasshopper. So be patient, be patient. Our societies and cultures run on this artificial idea of authority. The concept that someone else has more of a say to your life than someone else is rather absurd, especially when it comes to the thoughts and beliefs. Yet we are bombarded with the concepts every day that if you don't think a certain way or act a certain way, that you are indeed a horrible person, or you don't belong in society, or even more so, you don't deserve to live a life. Now, if you're not directly harming or affecting anyone in your actions or the things you enjoy, then go live your life. Love who you want to love, live your own life, be your own soul with meaning. However, be mindful of how others speak around you and when not around you. Be aware of this scary system that is, of course, groupthink. This system that's a flawed one, a system that the vast majority of people follow, trust, and continue every single day, whether they realize it or not. And the thing about this is, all it takes is a single piece of bad information to entirely change the narrative of the story, or even one bad actor to flip the narrative on its head. So many of us take at face value what we are told, either through blind trust because we are too busy and lazy to do our own research, or we don't want to go against the flow. And so the cycle continues. Now I know that seemed like a pretty "the end is nigh" kind of intro to the video, but I gotta get your attention somehow. More and more, thanks to the instant communication at our fingertips, we are being subjected to so many different opinions, voices, thoughts, ideas, viewpoints, ideologies, characterizations, and everything in between. From individuals, groups, communities, countries, and worldwide movements, some good, some bad, and some a little bit of both. So this leads me to ask one simple question. Are the beliefs and ideas and conclusions you have, based on your own research that you have strived to achieve for yourself, are they in fact real, or were they manufactured due to this crazy phenomenon known as groupthink? Groupthink is a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. Group members try to minimize conflict and reach a consensus decision without critical evaluation of alternative viewpoints, by actively suppressing dissenting viewpoints and by isolating themselves from outside influences. Right off the bat, you can tell I'm taking a bit of a confrontational approach to this. mainly due to the fact it can and has been used to such dangerous levels in human history. From China, Russia, America, the UK, Ireland, Germany, almost any place in time that has some form of major conflict in terms of military, civil, or even social conflict, groupthink has played a major role instigating the issues, causing untold catastrophic damage to humanity. Obviously, I'm talking about the extreme bad side of the spectrum here when mentioning this. I just want to point out the obvious potential misuses of it. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I'm going to say a few statements and I want you to tell me if they are true or false. Number 1, the cavemen lived in caves. Number 2, Earth's magnetic North Pole is in the North Pole and its South magnetic pole is in the South Pole. Number 3, witches were burned at the stake at Salem. Number 4, goldfish have a 3-second memory. And number 5, humans have only 5 senses. So I want you to take about 5 seconds and tell me which one of these are true and which one of these are false. Okay, good? Know which ones are true and which ones are false? If you told me they were all lies, congratulations. Well done. You were correct. If not, well, I've just messed with your head now a little bit, haven't I? This is the point I'm trying to make. Just because it is what you've been told and what you believe, it doesn't make it true, no matter how many others believe it and tell it. With a simple Google search, you can debunk every single one of those statements, yet most of us believe those things. Why? Why do we believe those things? Maybe right now, this may seem like the ramblings of some insane Irishman that's just looking for a sponsorship from a tea company to get a lifetime supply, but you know, you gotta do something with your free time, I suppose. So, how does this tie together exactly? How exactly does mass conflict and people who think a goldfish has a 3-second memory tie in together? Well, it's simple, really. It's not the idea itself, but the reasoning behind why they have the idea. Before we get stuck into the potential reasons behind all of this, I want to say a quick thank you to Boomerang TKO for sending me some very important information and studies that I've looked into for research for this video. So again, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. He was also one of the very first people I've ever seen post my videos to Reddit to help spread them around. So Mr. Boomerang, I appreciate you. Go give him a look. I shall leave a link to his channel down below. There have been quite a few studies over the years that have attempted to learn the secrets of the brain. There are 4 studies that I've looked into to help give me some insight into how the phenomenon of groupthink actually occurs. I will at some point do in-depth videos on the studies, but for now we're going to take a general glance over them. All studies will be linked below so that you can do your own research and read up on them if you wish. The studies are as follows: the Milgram experiment, the Ash conformity experiment, the 1954 Robbers Cave experiment, otherwise known as realistic conflict theory, and Caldini et al., the door in the face technique, otherwise known as the foot in the door technique, the study. Now you might be thinking, what do any of these have to do with groupthink? The answer is rather simple. Groupthink as a whole is a mixture of social pressures that tie in with our neurological desires to be associated with a group and to be approved of by the group. The Milgram experiment looked into the concept of obedience towards authority figures and if an individual would continue to do an action that went against their own moral conscience. The results of this study found that a very high proportion of people fully obeyed the instructions. Funny that, ain't it? The Ash conformity experiment looked into how people would respond to social pressures and thoughts held by the group, if they would succumb to the groupthink, inadvertently thinking everyone else must be right and the individual must be wrong, or merely because they didn't want to go against the group and cause potential backlash. What they found was 37% of the participants conformed to the social pressures, 5% of which were constantly conforming even against their better judgment. Realistic conflict theory delved into how intergroup hostility can come about when groups are competing over limited resources, where there is what's known as a zero-sum fate, where the winning side gets the resource and the losing side gets nada. This resource can be real or perceived, from money, political power, military protection, or even how high you are in the social ladder. If the resource is believed to be a scarcity and a zero-sum game, then RCT may indeed explain the beginnings of prejudice and discrimination between different groups. RCT found that the longer groups are in conflict over scarce resource, resentment, anger, discrimination, violence, and prejudice arises, the severity of which depends on the resource, the value of it, the perceived scarcity, and the length of the conflict. What RCT proves also is the only way to restore and build positive relations is if universal, non-competitive goals are introduced for both groups to work towards together. And lastly, Cialdini's study was to test the effectiveness of a rejection then moderation procedure for inducing compliance with the request for a favor. In other words, asking a big request then straight after a smaller request to see how many would comply with the smaller request. What they found was the technique had a 50% rate of both men and women to get them to agree to the smaller request. That number is freaking terrifying to think about. Now you might be thinking, what do any of these have to do with groupthink? The answer is rather simple. Groupthink as a whole is a mixture of social pressures that tie in with our neurological desires to be associated with a group and to be approved of by the group. Nearly every single person hates being alone. We are biologically designed to seek out companionship, whether that be in a romantic, platonic, group, or societal setting. We flock to people who have similar ideas, tastes, beliefs, hobbies, goals, mindsets, etc., etc., etc. We build our own groups and our own individual cultures, our own little slices of the world. Through that, we unknowingly create multiple upon multiple levels of authority, people we respect, trust, depend on, even if we have no personal direct communication with them. We do this because it is instinct. We have done it for thousands upon thousands of years and built up societies and nations around this simple concept. A great example of this is through the study on realistic conflict theory. I highly recommend you all taking the time to watch a video or two that outlines the entire study. I personally recommend watching the video made by CCHPUA, titled 5-Minute History Lesson, Episode 3, Robber's Cave. The link will be in the video. The link will be in the description down below. Link will be in the video. Jesus, Simon. Now to go a little further into detail, I want to ask a simple question. Have you ever met a group of new people and acted differently when accepted into the group? Have you ever toned yourself down or amped yourself up to be more inherently accepted? Maybe you do or say things you normally wouldn't. Perhaps someone says something that you know to be false, yet everyone else is agreeing and you choose specifically not to correct them. The little tinge of fear or the underlying nagging in your head saying, hey, let's not do that because we don't want to cause waves. We don't want to cause a ruckus. We don't want to be in trouble. Alternatively, maybe you start to doubt what you knew to be true, as you've already done your homework on the topic. Maybe you start to believe them due to the fact that so many of them are agreeing, even though they haven't showed you any evidence to prove what they say is true. So, let's go into the studies. While the Robber's Cave experiment shows we inherently create our own individual groups, Ash's conformity experiment shows us where the pressures of these groups can make us begin to believe a narrative rather than the actual definitive proof based on social pressures and the group's unanimous decision making. Cialdini and Milgram show us, through their experiments quite brilliantly, people can be coerced very easily through simple suggestion and the use of authority figures in order to get people to do things that not only they wouldn't normally do, but alternatively, things they would never do, just because someone in an authority position told them to do it. All these studies on their own don't help explain it, but together, all these studies easily show, when done in unison, it's not very hard for a large group of people to truly believe the narrative of what a particular wave of groupthink is telling people to believe. In doing so, it also makes it harder for people to express concern or the truth of the particular situation. Groupthink requires individuals to avoid raising controversial issues or alternative solutions, and there is a loss of individual creativity, uniqueness, and independent thinking. The dysfunctional group dynamics of the in-group produces an illusion of invulnerability, an inflated certainty that the right decision has been made. Thus, the in-group significantly overrates its own abilities in decision-making and significantly underrates the abilities of its opponents, the out-group. Furthermore, groupthink can produce dehumanizing actions against the out-group. Usually at this point in the video I begin to list the potential pros and cons of the topic in question. However, the only time there'd be any pros to this is if you're a maniacal monster using it for nefarious reasons, which of course is a very bad thing and something everyone, for obvious reasons, should avoid. The danger of groupthink is that it stops people from being themselves, and while many people may follow the group thinking they are doing genuine good, what happens is they hurt the group that they're a part of. They hurt its credibility, its public standing, and it prevents others from taking them seriously, or even reaching out to have an honest discussion with them. It also increases the possibility and probability to create hostility between people with different viewpoints, no matter the topic. All in all, it is a very slippery slope, and very easy to get sucked into. We've all seen it happen, all throughout history, time and time again. We continue to see it every time we turn on our TV, our radio, our phones, our computers, and even at homes in small and big ways. The thing is, over time, the more you buy into it, the division that occurs between yourself and others increases tenfold, and can in certain occasions result in dangerous situations where individuals get hurt. This is inevitably where groupthink leads people to, every single time it is used for the betterment of people's lives. Which is rather ironic, to be fair. Now that we know a little bit more about how all this works and how it can negatively affect us, here's a few tips to avoid groupthink and to not get duped by all that trickery. Number 1, trust no one. Alright, maybe a little bit dramatic here, a little bit melodramatic here. You see, lots of folks do things by word of mouth. Eventually, things get mixed up and other people lie, intentionally and unintentionally, or they simply get something wrong. I tend to get things wrong a lot, so I often say I have no clue. People have since stopped asking me questions, and I have so much more free time, hence this video. So if people tell you something that could directly or indirectly affect you, go do some research. Look for opposing sides of the story, and weed out the lies to find the truth. Essentially, be your own investigative journalist. Number 2, be unapologetically yourself. Simply put, if you're not hurting anyone else or affecting another's life in a negative way, then go be yourself. Wear what you want to wear. Love who you want to love. Work where you want to work. Do all the hobbies you want to do, and don't give a flying fuck about what others think about you. Let's put it this way. Gamers, nerds, scientists, and anime, just to name a few, used to be considered something only outcasts do. Yet today it's gone mainstream and seen as the hip thing to be and to do. My point being, it doesn't matter what others say, feel, think, or do, as long as you ain't hurting no one, then you go be you. Oh damn, that rhymed. Ooh! Number 3, always keep learning. We oftentimes get to feeling like we can't be bothered learning anything and we'll end up becoming couch potatoes watching show after show after show. The idea of reading a book or learning something new with a tutorial oftentimes gets us down. Truth be told, if you want to always remain yourself and to express yourself, then you owe it to yourself to always keep learning. So read that book you've been meaning to do. Practice that instrument. Cook for once in your damn life. Plant that plant. Sow that seed in your mind. If you're open to new things and new ideas, it is so much harder for someone else to take advantage of you. And number 4, keep an open mind. This one should be self-explanatory. If you're dealing with groupthink, it is very easy to spot it if you're open to others' opinions, thoughts, and feelings on a subject. Groupthink doesn't permit that. Groupthink actively fights open discussion and the concepts that there are flaws with their ideas. So keep your mind open, and if you find something that works better, do that. Life is easiest when you find the best solutions for every single thing in your life. Be adaptable. It really is that simple. Well, in concept it is easy, but in practice it's hard, as you have to accept that you can be wrong and own up to your own decisions, which most people hate as they feel like it makes them weak or stupid, and in doing so, not owning up to their own mistakes, they continually mess up even more and spiral into a never-ending cycle of destruction. So, yeah, keep an open mind. So this has been on my mind for several months now, and it's always great to get something as massive as this off my chest, because this is a very difficult thing to do as well, a very difficult topic to talk about, because it's so sensitive, because people don't realize that they're in groupthinks, and then they get defensive, then they get angry, and then, you know, yada yada yada, your life is over essentially because people are trying to murder you. So, yeah, usually, I'm being a little bit overboard here, but my point is, things like this are very difficult to talk about because you have to seriously sit down and think about it. You have to seriously contemplate it and consider, how can I put this in such a way that it can help others, that it won't turn them off essentially from the channel entirely, or from the video or the topic. How do I get through to them? How do I break through the programming and get people to think so that it improves their lives? Because this whole groupthink is scary shit. And the worst part is that, like I said, people oftentimes don't recognize it. And there are some pretty big issues that can be resolved from combating this. And unfortunately, I see it playing all over, in the world today. I mean, you see it on TV, online, radio, schools, universities, communities, hell, even religions and political parties. It's all over the world, from high up every day to everyday, human beings on the streets. Every day more and more people fall into its trap, and if I can help being a guiding light to help stray away from that, then, gonna try my best at the very least. So I really hope this video helps you see the potential reasons, situations, and some small potential solutions to this whole mess. Let's hope, the more people talking about things like this, we can make some form of positive change in the world for the better. As for now, I just want to say thank you for watching, and again, a thank you to Boomerang TKO for helping with some of the background research for this video. He gave me this information probably a month and a half ago. So sorry it took this long to actually create it. But it is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for the information. Also, if you made it this far into the video, goodness help you, but also, big thank you. If you want to support me further, you can support me over on Patreon, or you can simply just destroy that freaking like button. That being said, I've been Sai, and thank you ever so freaking much for watching this video the whole way through. Good luck, guys.